I got released. I was in a wheelchair for like about 10 months, I want to say.
Oh,
I couldn't even walk. I lost all feeling in my leg. My parents had to like carry me from my bed to my wheelchair, to the wheelchair to the couch. It was just like...
Hey everybody, this is Billy at Bakersfield TUFF here with Ashley Villegas, right?
Yes.
And we do a thing in Bakersfield TUFF, our Overcoming the Odds with Encompass Health. They've been with us since we started the magazine. We focus on people who face adversity and never give up. And one of the topics that we've never really touched on is valley fever. And Ashley has a unique case here because not only did she have valley fever, but she had it while she was pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of unique. So explain to us a little bit how valley fever works. Like, a lot of people get confused on what it is, right? So what is valley fever?
Well, valley fever is something that you basically can't prevent. You just breathe it in and you have valley fever. It's mainly here in the valley, and me, I'm not quite sure how I got it, but they say that I could have already had it from... I played club soccer down here in Bakersfield for years, and they said I could have already had it, but since my immune system was so high up from the sports, that it didn't affect me then until I got pregnant.
Wow.
And that's when it got to me.
Right. Now, of course, when you're pregnant, you get a little bit more concerned, right? Because it's you and your child.
It's me and my daughter, and with like the symptoms of valley fever, that was a more concerning thing, with me having high fevers of like 104 continuously. And I was scared that my baby was gonna have like some sort of like compulsions and stuff, and me not being able to get rid of those fevers, that was my main concern.
Right. How many people a year get valley fever?
CDC estimates between 150 and 300,000 cases a year, but most of those people aren't gonna know they had valley fever, unfortunately, or fortunately, I should say. But in Kern County, we had almost 3,000 cases diagnosed last year. So the numbers kind of get a little bit, it's like the rings on a tree. You know, you have this big number of 150 to 300,000, but Kern County, we had about 3,000 cases. California had, I think, 8,000. Yeah. And so...
You said something interesting that some people don't know they have it, right? Like, what did they think they had, the flu?
So actually, as many as 60% of people that have valley fever, they're asymptomatic. They may not even have a cough. Their body gets it and fights it. So where Kern Medical is researching it through the Valley Fever Institute is, why did, maybe you've had valley fever, certainly somebody that's listening here has had valley fever and didn't even know it. Why did they get it, not even know they had it, go on with their life, and you have people like Ashley and myself that are reliant on medication for life, and not just oral medication, but one of the things that you see with me is I have this horn on my head. Yeah. That's a port. So Ashley and I met when we had treatment together, when they actually inject a drug into our brain.
Whoa.
To keep the valley fever at bay. They're not killing valley fever. Nothing's killing valley fever. This drug is just kind of beating it up enough that we're able to have somewhat of a normal life, hopefully.
I just had really high fevers. I had like a sore throat, and I had migraines. So at that point, like, it could have, like, I had a cold, I had a flu. There were just like symptoms like that, but they weren't going away. So that was my main concern. So I had no idea what I had then until I came down here to Kern Medical, and they diagnosed me with valley fever.
Were you shocked that they told you you had that?
I wasn't in the right state of mind, so I couldn't really be shocked. I had so much fluid accumulation in my brain and all that, so I had no idea what was even going on. But we had no idea what valley fever was. My mom had no idea. She was asking the doctor, like, what's valley fever? Like, what's going on with my daughter? Like, is she gonna die? Like, what's gonna happen? Until we finally did like our research of our own, and that's how we figured out what valley fever was.
Is there a point where you're wondering, like, okay, did this do anything to my child? Like, what, you know, was there any concern that you had at that point?
Yeah, it was concerning to me, but then my doctor, he told me that there was no way that my daughter could get it from me. I mean, there is a rare case for it to happen, but there's something with like the placenta protecting my daughter from her getting the valley fever. So
yeah.
So what the interesting thing about valley fever is it's not transmitted from person to person or even animal to person. There's always that one Ripley's Believe It or Not case or some weird science case. but your placenta actually, or not your placenta, but her placenta actually acted as a barrier. So it's very rare for a mother to give birth to a baby that has valley fever, which is very lucky, because the risk factor that was that did it for Ashley was that third trimester of pregnancy, your immune system is suppressed because of the baby just growing inside you. So when you have valley fever, especially during pregnancy or in the third trimester, it's very hard to treat. So if you do get it when you're pregnant, luckily it's not likely to be passed down to your child.
Right. Do any people get, like we talked about, some people do get treated and they never see it again, right? Or like,
yeah, they break valley fever down into 3 types of valley fever. You have acute, which is what 90% of people are going to get. And then you have chronic.
Symptomatic?
Yeah, acute is basically the normal type of valley fever that people are familiar with, where you miss a little work, you feel like crap, and then you may or may not take drugs and you get over it. And it's they estimate that somewhere between 6 and 12 months maybe for full recovery. And then you have chronic, which is people that are constantly going to be battling a pneumonia form or something like that, and it's going to have an impact on their life. Maybe recurrent, something like that. And then you have disseminated, which is the third strike, so to speak, and that's what Ashley and I have. So that means it's left your lungs, it's gone somewhere else. It can go to your bones, it can go to your eye, it can go to your, here's a fun one, it can go to your testicles.
Wow.
It can also go to your brain, which is very common. That's where we have it.
Yeah.
And so that requires generally lifelong treatment.
Wow.
So we never get to be free of the valley fever drugs unless they come up with a new drug that actually kills it.
Are they working on that? I mean, is there enough cases where it's something they're working on?
There are actually people that have devoted their entire lives to trying to cure this disease.
And it's not a virus, right? It's a fungus.
No, it's a fungus. So it's a fungus. It grows in the soil. There's nothing we can do to avoid this fungus. You can move out of the southwestern United States, but if you move to the East Coast, you're going to deal with Lyme disease. If you move to the Southeast, you're going to deal with a different type of fungal disease. So there's, there's probably about an area somewhere in the United States about as big as a postage stamp, where you don't have to deal with hurricanes or tidal waves or earthquakes or valley fever or Lyme disease or anything else. But until we find that one spot, and then we get there first. The thing with valley fever is everybody wants to associate it with farmland and all that stuff. It's the soil and the areas that nobody's gone yet. It's where they're building the solar farms. It's all those pretty foothills out there where you like to ride dirt bikes, where we like to ride horses. That's where it is. It's in the undisturbed soils on the east side and the west side of the valley.
Wow. Interesting. I got to talk about this. Like, you talked about the ports on your head, right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Now, you guys both have ports, right?
Yeah.
Now, can I just show them yours? Do you care?
Yeah, because it's easier to see than hers.
Yeah, she's got hair over hers.
Well,
now, explain to me why they put this port in your head.
So, we've talked about being on medication for life.
Right.
So that's not always enough. Pills aren't always enough. So they have another drug that the doctors call amphotericin. They equate it to being to a chemotherapy treatment. So there's 2 places they put it. They put it in your veins or they put it in your brains. So we have it put in our brains. So the way they do that is, for me, they horseshoe this flap of skin, peel it back, got the old Black & Decker out, drilled a hole in my skull.
Really?
Yeah, it ran a tube into my brain, what they call the ventricle, which is kind of like an open space in your brain.
Yeah.
And then they connect it to this reservoir right here, which is on top of my skull, but connected to this tube. And then they put the skin back. So basically, I have an express lane from outside my skull into the center of my brain, and they inject the medicine in there. I started out at twice a week having that done. Ashley was 3 times a week. And now she's every 2 weeks, and I'm every 7 weeks.
What's the long-term goal?
For me, 8 weeks.
8 weeks, okay. But it's always going to be there?
With current medicine, that's every 8 weeks, every 7 weeks. And that sounds really horrible, but I figure every 6 weeks and 6 days, I get to have a normal life, and then I wake up one Friday every 7 weeks and have a really crappy day.
Wow.
So
amazing.
And I'm hoping that once in the not too distant future, that's her story, that once every 7 weeks she has a crappy day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than having a crappy day every 2 weeks.
But it's still better than having 3 crappy days a week.
Yep.
What's great and amazing about Ashley and what she's done is the type of valley fever we have, even with the best medicine and good luck, it's fatal 30% of the time. So she went from having this severe form of valley fever that can literally ruin your life, put you in a wheelchair, and prevent you from sometimes even walking again, to get up and do what she's done, which is to get up. I'm gonna let you tell that.
Okay, well, after my doctor declared me that I'm able to live my normal life, I went to High Desert Medical College, and then I studied ultrasound sonography, and I'm currently doing my externship at Kern Medical. So I got released. I was in a wheelchair for like about 10 months, I want to say. I couldn't even walk. I lost all feeling in my leg. My parents had to like carry me from my bed to my wheelchair, to the wheelchair to the couch. It was just like, it was very upsetting. And then every time we went to the store, I had to go in a wheelchair. But I was able to gain all my strength again by physical therapy, and now I'm here. So that's what I'm thankful for, and I'm walking.
I was gonna say, you know, even though I know some people may say, why me? But in some ways, it's kind of, you have to feel thankful, right? Like you feel like you're probably one of the luckier ones, right?
Trust me, I thought that was like the thing that was on the top of my head. I lost all my hair with the medication. I obviously couldn't walk. So at that point I was depressed. I did have some antidepressants because I don't know, I'm young. I had so much going for me, and I thought everything was going to end right there and then. But I'm thankful that I'm here, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
Clinical information from the state of California, from the federal government, from about 5 or 10 different places like the Mayo Clinic. But it's not really designed to talk to people. It's designed for physicians. So we want to get out some information that's going to be useful to people, like when do you get tested? You know, everybody can tell you, oh, it's valley fever, symptoms are this and this. But let's talk about when you should go get that test.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter what your symptoms are. If you've had the symptom for 10 days and you're going to go to the doctor, have them test you for valley fever.
Right.
And if they come back and say, well, you don't have valley fever, say that's great. But then if your symptoms are still going on, you're going to go back to that doctor, have them test you again.
Really?
Because the blood test is measuring your body's reaction to valley fever.
Right. The antibodies to it.
Yeah, the antibodies. So if your body's not fighting valley fever yet and it hasn't recognized that you're sick yet, you're not going to register on the test.
Okay.
So you sometimes have to do a second test.
Wow. All right. Well, I want to thank you too, Ashley, for sharing your story. Of course, we're glad you're here. And of course, before we go, you know, it can be a very bad disease. I mean, people probably lose their lives, right? Sometimes.
Unfortunately, we've had people that have lost their lives recently.
Yeah.
I've lost. I think I just found out I've lost 3 people that I know personally this year to valley fever.
Wow.
But I also know a lot of people that are dealing with severe forms of valley fever.
Right. Yeah. Sad. We're going to put you in the next issue of Bakersfield Tough and our Overcoming the Odds, Ashley, from Encompass Health. And thanks for sharing the story.
You're welcome.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
All right. This is Billy at Bakersfield Tough.